What up, y'all? Joseph Morrison, aka Kojo Locs. I'm coming to you with another video. This right here is a loc channel, and what I do here is I discuss loc content. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely subscribe, like the video, share it with a friend. For today's video, we're going to be talking about my frequently asked questions, part 2. So basically what we're going to be doing is discussing some questions that I get from people who are looking to lock their locs up, people who have locs, people who have no intention of getting locs but are just interested in locs, and all these people have questions. So, I just thought I'd kind of compile some questions that I kind of frequently keep getting, and so much so that I decided to make a part 2 version of this. There is a part 1 version featuring my lovely daughter Javea. Feel free to check that out. But let's just jump right into it. Don't want to waste any more of your time, alright? So one of the questions that I do get quite often is, what is better, a bonnet or a do-rag? Now, you know why I like that question? Because it's a question that I had for myself for a very long time. I very frequently I would go back and forth. There was times where I've used both at the same time, particularly in the winter when you want to kind of keep that moisture in, keep that warmth into your locs as you're sleeping. But I guess the best way I can answer this question from my experience is in the very beginning stages of your loc journey, when you're waiting for your locs to even just start locking up. You definitely want to use your do-rag, because that's going to help to keep your hair a little bit more tame. It's going to help to keep your hair more together as you're sleeping. There's less chance of your hair kind of moving all over the place and things of that nature. And that's very helpful in the beginning stages of your loc journey, because you want your hair to start to lock up. In the very beginning stages, as little disruption as possible to the hair is good stuff. So you want to kind of think that the do-rag would be a little bit more effective in that way, especially if your hair texture is one that's a little harder to lock up. You're going to definitely want to make sure that you're not, sleeping in a way that your hair is going all over the place, because if that's the case, then your locs that you're trying to form are just going to come undone quite often, and then you have to keep doing that process over and over again. So the beginning stages, I think, is definitely more important to go in with your do-rag. Your bonnet, which fits your head a lot looser than your do-rag would, of course, I think is better after you've been locked up. I personally myself am about 2.5 years locked right now, and so my hair is locked. There's still more locking to go, but at this stage, I believe, and from what I've witnessed from my own experience, is using the bonnet now has been more effective. So I've been using my bonnet solely. Like, I haven't used my do-rag now for maybe 4 months, and what I find is when I use the bonnet, because my hair is already locked, I don't have to worry about my hair becoming unlocked, right? Like, that's not even a question, especially also because I have inner locs, which is a conversation for another video. I've made videos on inner locs and comb coils, and you can check out what the difference is there. But my hair is not going to be unlocked. So what's actually going to be good with the bonnet is the subtle movement that my hair is doing at night, mind you, within the confines of a protective silk bonnet. There's still going to be a lot more movement, because I'm not wearing a tight do-rag, I'm wearing a bonnet. So that movement's actually going to help the hair to lock up even further. So for me, my big issue, I shouldn't say issue, but my big thing, or that's yet to be locked, is a lot of my tips, as you can see, are still kind of frayed out a little bit. And by using my bonnet at night, it can help to kind of lock up a little further. It can actually help the process of locking up, because that subtle movement and friction is going to kind of help the locs to coil up even further. Because at 2.5 years in the game, at this point my hair is already like, yeah, we want to get locked, we want to lock up. They're already moving together. They're already understanding that we're trying to get them to move together. So the bonnet at that stage is a little bit more helpful, whereas in the beginning, your hair is not really used to coming together and coiling up. It's not how your hair is thinking. I know that sounds silly, but your hair is not trained in that way, right? So naturally your hair is trained in, let's say if you comb your hair often or whatever hairstyle you had prior, your hair is used to that. So it's not trying to lock up, it's trying to come apart. So if you have a bonnet in the early stage, thanks Big Ear for all that noise, there's a cat over here. So if you have the bonnet in that early stage while your hair is already trying to come apart, the bonnet's gonna kind of only help it to come apart because it's giving it room to do that. But if you have your do-rag in the early stage where your hair is trying to come apart, the do-rag says, we're staying together, right? So in my opinion, in the early stages, go with your do-rag, and then once you've pretty well, started locking up and you're confident and comfortable that your hair is locking up, then you can go ahead with your bonnet. and that will actually help your locking process. And again, this is my opinion. I know that there's a lot of different trains of thought, different opinions, different thoughts. A lot of professionals would probably say different or the same, but I'm just speaking from my experience, and that's what I think, and that's what I've experienced. So, there you go. Hope that helps you out. Question number 2, this is a good one. How do you keep your hairline from being pulled back when you have locks? Now, yes, a lot of people have seen and probably know that typically when you get locks, it's easier, or your hair can become, or your hairline can be more susceptible to being pulled back. Now, as you can see, I don't have that issue, and there's a few reasons for that, and I will discuss that right now. One, the primary thing is a lot of the hairline stuff, it's hereditary. Like, if your father or your grandfather or people in your family are susceptible to balding or will kind of start to lose their hairline over time, then yeah, you're probably just predisposed to having your hairline eventually be receding, regardless of if you had locks, or if you had a low cut, or if you had whatever other hairstyle you could possibly have, right? So that's number 1, and that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't think about. Like, it's possible that your hairline is just gonna recede because of your DNA and your genetics and who you are and who your parents were and your grandparents and your great-grandparents and all that stuff. So that's number 1. Now, things that we can control are as follows. Now, when you're getting your hair done, specifically, I guess, when you're getting your hair retwisted or relocked or re-interlocked, retightened, you want to obviously have your hair done tight, because that's what's gonna help to lock in a lot more of that loose hair at the bottom of the lock, right? That's kind of loose. However, you don't wanna do it too tightly, because what happens then is it starts to pull. So if I do my interlock super, super tight, you know, for that first couple weeks, my hair still has to grow before that lock at the bottom loosens up, right? So for those 2 weeks, essentially that lock that's been done is gonna be pulling on my scalp. And what that does is it kind of negates your hair follicles from growing properly, which they just kind of get pulled out from the root. And that is one of the reasons why, like, early onset hairline pullback, I think I just made up a term, early onset hairline pullback? It sounds kind of ghetto, but you get what I'm saying. That's why that can happen, right? You're essentially pulling on your hair when you get your retwists or when you get your retightenings done. Another thing could be doing lock styles. If you're doing lock styles too much, and more importantly, when you're doing your lock styles, if you're doing them too tightly. For example, my hair right now is in pigtails, right? Now, I always make sure that when I do, and I'll show you, let me see if I can get a good view here. So if you see the back, right? It looks like it's tight, but it's not. Anytime I put my hair up like this, I always go to the bottom and I'll pull the hairs through just a little bit. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna help to give the hair at the bottom here a little bit of room so it doesn't feel like it's being pulled super tight the whole time. Now, when you're getting your hair done from a loctician, or let's say you're doing your own hairstyle, maybe you're doing a barrel twist or a 2-strand twist, always give your roots a little bit of room to breathe. And if your hair is not long enough to do a lock style without giving your hair room to breathe at the root, don't do the lock style. It's very important that you're not pulling on your roots too often. Now, yes, sometimes you'll go back and get a retwist from your loctician or whatever, and it's a little tight, you know what I'm saying? Like, just a little tight. That's okay. That being said, you don't want to go from doing that and then, let's say, a week later you do a lock style that you keep in your hair for 2 weeks. And then you do another lock style you keep in your hair for 2 weeks. And then after that month, you go back and get a retwist, which is tight. Like, if you look at the timeline, that's like 6 weeks of your hair just being pulled. So all of those things can definitely cause your hairline to be pulled back. Another thing is, my friends, when you're getting your lineups, right? When you're getting your barber to line you up, make sure he stays where your lineup is. If he starts to line you up and pull your hair back more and more and more, that is pulling your hairline back. It is common sense, okay? So make sure your barber knows what he's doing. And number 2 in that regard with the hairline thing, or the barber thing rather, you don't want your barber to get too close to your locks, too close to the root of your locks also, right? So if he's getting closer to that root of your lock, he could possibly nick a lock, and there goes your hard work, right? Then you'd have to kill that person. You'd have to murder him or her. I don't advocate murder on this channel, I'm just kidding. That was a joke. I'm slightly a comedian. It's neither here nor there. So yes, so making sure that you're getting your lineups done right on that line. And another thing, honestly, And I know it's important to get a line up and stay crispy and stay fresh, which I love to do, but as of late, I've kind of been pushing my lineups and my haircuts a little further back. I'm going like once every month now, once every 3 weeks. I used to be like 2 weeks on the dot, and it's just to let my hair do its thing, be as natural as possible. And you know, I think that also helps towards my hairline and all that stuff. Like I try to do as little manipulation as possible, and that's the best recipe, really. It's just doing as little as possible to your hair is really important. So those are a few things that I think can help you with the hairline. But again, a big portion of it is hereditary. A big portion of it is simply, it's gonna happen if it's gonna happen. And one more quick note on that is not using too many excessive products, because that can just be damaging to your hair, period. And anything that's damaging to your hair is going to be damaging to your hairline, because if your hairline is the most vulnerable part of your hair or your scalp, and you're putting damaging chemicals in your hair, or excessive use of oils, or excessive use of different products, that can also cause your hairline to be pulled back also, because if the hair is already kind of brittle and you're adding to that with extra chemicals, bye-bye hairline, right? So really make sure just to let your hair do its thing. Try and be a little bit minimal with the hairstyles. And again, if you're gonna be doing hairstyles, make sure that you're kind of pulling the root out so that it has a little bit of room to breathe. Or if you're having your loctician do it, just kind of say, hey, try and be a little easy on the hairline, or be a little easy on the tightness of how much you're pulling my locks. And that's pretty much your best bet, all right? Cool, what question number? Question number 3? All right, okay. Question number 3. What is one thing that I regret so far on my lock journey? Now, I would say this. There's nothing that I regret. I know it's cliche to say that, but there's things that I definitely, in hindsight, I probably would not have done. And one thing is, I definitely think around the 1 year to 1.5 year mark, maybe even a little bit longer to be honest, I was doing a lot of crochet hooking to my hair. So crochet hooking is where you take a tool and you go to the ends of your hair and you basically help to pull that hair together. That's pretty much what crochet hooking does. You can use, there's a lot of reasons why crochet hooking is important, and I still think it's a great tool to have and to use at times. However, that being said, if you're using it too often like I was, it can actually negate your locking process. The process in which your hair is trying to lock and come together kind of has to be just done organically. That's the best way to do it. In other words, letting your hair do it on its own. If you're constantly, like if your hair is slowly coming together and then you take crochet hook and crochet hook it in all together, your hair might not necessarily like that, or that actually might negate the process in the long run, especially with my hair texture. Now my hair texture is between 2C to 4B, 4A, something like that. So essentially the tips of my hair take a long time to lock up. My hair texture, the tips of my hair are very straight, which isn't very common, but that's my hair. So for me, going in with my crochet hook actually doesn't help because my hair is already so straight at the tips. The best course of action for someone like myself is leave the hair alone and let it lock up on its own. If you have coilier hair texture where your hair is super coily even all the way to the tip, you can probably get away with a little bit more crochet hooking than I did. But that being said, that's why it's important to know your own hair and scalp and know what things are beneficial for you and what things are not. And even as you're listening to my videos or watching my videos and taking my advice in some points, still take even what I say to a grain of salt because I'm speaking for my hair and my hair texture. And that's one thing that I think I learned the hard way of seeing everybody being like, oh, crochet hook your hair, da 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 da. So I was like, okay, and I just did it. And yeah, it was good for some reasons, and some of my locks did benefit from it, but I do think that some of my locks were detrimented by it. And you know, so I would say that's probably one thing is excessive use of my crochet hook would be one. That's pretty much it. Another thing I would say, I don't think I completely would, I wouldn't say I would regret this, but one thing I kind of wish I did was, so you see how I have high top locks? So my hair is just like, this is, you know, just the top of my head. I would have probably, especially at the sides, went a little bit lower with where I grew my locks. So I probably went a little bit lower with it. And that's just, I mean, hindsight's 20/20 with that. Like that, there's no way that I could have really known that, I guess, in the beginning stages. I do love my locks, I love where they're at, I don't regret it, but I think I would have probably brought it down a little bit more. So I guess my only advice with that would be when you're going in to get your hair locked for the first time, like you're about to start your locking journey. Yay, so exciting, I know. Make sure you know exactly what you want your locks to look like, and make sure you know what style you want to go. Like make sure you have all those boxes checked off and you're confident about it. Don't just kind of be like, oh, maybe I'll do high top locks because, I don't know, they're kind of cool. Because you might be a year and a half in the game and be like, oh, I wish I got a full set of locks, right? So just make sure you kind of know exactly how you want your hair to look, exactly what you want your start to be, just so that you don't have to really think about it down the road. That being said, I do think it's also a kind of grass is greener mentality. I think as people in general, we're always going to kind of look at the other side of the fence and be like, that's kind of cool, just because it's different. So there's nothing wrong with that also. That being said, I love my locks and I wouldn't change anything, honestly. And I think all of these things that we do along our journey, whether it be mistakes or not, it's a part of the journey, just like life. Like, you're not gonna go through life with a clean track record, right? We've all done things we regret. We've all done things that we wouldn't have done a second time around, but that's how you learn from these things. So yeah, I'd probably say a little bit too excessive with my crochet hook, and I would probably start my locks a little bit lower, maybe like one more row going all the way around the back or something like that. But it's all good. I love my locks. Can't say anything bad about them. All right, question number 4. When and what is the best time to wash your locks? I get this question quite often, and I guess my best answer would be a couple things to think about. So it depends on what stage of locks you have. If you have just started with your locking journey, you are gonna try to push your washes as far apart as possible. And the purpose of that is to try to let your locks lock up. So again, going back to what I was saying earlier, as little manipulation as possible to your hair is the best case scenario for your hair to lock up in that starter phase, right? So washing your hair is a form of disruption. Now there's many ways you can do it that gives it minimal disruption, yada, 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 but it's still disruption to your hair. And if you can not have to wash, that's a good thing. That being said, for starter lockers, if your scalp is dirty and you're like, no, but I'm gonna hold on because I gotta keep these locks going, you gotta wash your hair, right? The most important thing is that you have a clean scalp. If you don't, you're gonna disrupt your locking process. You're essentially forming dirty locks. Like, you're starting your locking process with lock buildup in your locks already. So you're really not gonna be happy a year down the road with your locks. So the number one thing is you have to have a clean scalp. So the moment you start seeing buildup occur, then yes, you're gonna go in and wash. And hopefully for yourself, as a starter locker, that's about 3 weeks to a month, I would say, would be great. If it happens to be every 2 weeks, then so be it. For me, when I started my journey, I had to wash my hair every like week to 2 weeks, just because I was getting buildup in my hair. And you gotta do what you gotta do, you know? So I would say for starter lockers, you're trying to push that apart as far as possible. But honestly, the answer is kind of the same all the way throughout. Like, even if your hair is 2.5 years locked like mine, or if you're 7 years locked, or whatever the case is, you really only need to wash your hair in 2 instances. One, when you start to get buildup in your hair, right? You're starting to get buildup in your scalp, you're starting to see lint build up and things like that, you gotta wash your hair. Number 2, if your hair and scalp are very, very itchy, that is a sign. That is a sign, usually, that there's something internal happening, and maybe you're consuming too much sugar, maybe you're not getting the right nutritional properties in your body, or maybe just you're somebody that works out a ton and you're constantly getting toxins out of your body. But basically, all that's being expelled onto your scalp, and that's where you get that itching feeling. Essentially, from a physical standpoint, anytime on your body where you feel like you have to scratch something or you feel like an itch, that's basically your body saying there's something on your body that's not supposed to be there. Now that can be, you know, a piece of lint that's fallen from the sky, that can be a piece of dirt, that can be anything. But it's the same thing for your scalp, right? So anytime you're feeling, and I'm not talking about just like one little like, oh, that little spot's itchy. I'm talking like, and if you're a locker, you know what I'm talking about. When you just feel like the world around you has to shut down because your scalp just needs to be scratched and nothing else matters, right? And then you think and you're like, it's kind of been a couple weeks since I washed my hair. You might be due for a wash, right? Now, if you just wash your hair and the very next day your scalp's very, very itchy, you probably don't need to wash your hair. That's probably just a part of your journey. I know myself, I've dealt with itching in the scalp and stuff like that to the point where I was like, am I gonna die? You know what I mean? So it is a part of the journey. That's simply just your scalp and hair getting used to you locking your hair up for the starter lockers out there. So that's a part of it as well. But I guess the best rule of thumb is when you're starting to get buildup in your scalp, probably have to go wash your hair. when you're starting to feel excessive itching in the scalp and it's been a week or 2 weeks or whenever that you haven't washed your hair, probably time to wash your hair. Outside of that, you can go a while without washing your hair. Some lockers wash their hair once a month, and that's fine for them, right? It's really just making sure you're paying attention to your scalp and locks and making sure they're not dirty. If they're not dirty, you don't need to wash them, right? Now, a few exceptional instances might be something like, let's say you have a job, let's say you're a construction worker and you're on construction sites, debris, asphalt, all kinds of things are constantly swirling around your locks and getting caught in your locks and things of that nature. Or maybe you work in a kitchen and there's constantly different smells and aromas and things of that nature that are being caught in your locks. People that have those type of exceptional jobs or those outside jobs that not everyone has, you're probably going to want to wash your locks a little bit more frequently, simply because odors can get trapped in your locks and dirt, debris, all that kind of stuff can also get caught in your locks. Think about it this way. Your locks are working to lock up, right? They're basically almost like they're becoming magnetized, and that's what helps them to lock up. So with that same magnetic energy, I know I just made your locks a superhero and magnetism is their power, but with that same magnetic energy, they also attract things from the outside world. Like lint. If you're laying on your couch and there's lint on your couch, it's going in your locks. Or if you're on the job work site and there's dust flying around, it's going in your locks. If you're in the kitchen and you're cooking some kind of curry dish, your locks are gonna smell like curry. So, because our locks are kind of a magnet, if you do have those jobs where you're frequently in those scenarios, you're probably gonna have to wash your locks a little bit more frequently. So yeah, it really just comes down to making sure your locks are clean, making sure your scalp is clean. And if they're not, you wash. If they are, you don't. That's it. I mean, wait. If they're not clean, you wash. If they are clean, you don't. Yeah, I got that right. Okay, I just thought it. So that being said, I would just say also one more thing with that is I wouldn't stick too closely to a regimen. If you're a starter locker, yes, you probably are going to want to do that. I did that in the start of my journey. It just helped my sanity to kind of have a regimen. But once you become more of a mature locker, you just wash your hair when you need to wash your hair. It doesn't have to be like, well, I washed it 2 weeks ago and it's only been a week, so I can't wash it for another week. Like, you don't really need to fall under that structure. If your hair is dirty a week later, wash your hair, right? And one more fun question that I do get is, who is my favorite locker? Meaning, whose hair do I just love and admire? And I guess this is more of just a fun question. But I think it's, especially if you're starting your journey or if you're on your journey, you have people who you look at their locks and you're like, yo, that's those locks. Those are mighty nice. Yeah, a couple people off the top of my head would be, well, I would say current day, John Morant probably has my favorite style of locks. I think his hair is dope. I like the length. I like the color. I like everything about it. It always looks healthy. It looks like he definitely takes care of it very well, or has someone do that for him. And yeah, I just think it's really cool. I like the originality of the colors he put in his locks. Like, it's just a fresh style. I actually kind of feel like I admire those locks. I'm kind of moving in that direction, if you will. Another person whose locks I admire as well, current day, would be Locs. Locs is a YouTuber as well. He has a lock channel, and he's actually one of the people that inspired me to start my lock channel. But his locks are dope, and it's actually interesting when you look at his locks now. It looks like such a cool transition with the color, the length, the thickness of it is great. Pause. But when you actually look at his story, and if you go to his channel and check out his video, he tells his story. And a lot of the way that he got his color was actually from excessive bleaching and excessive coloring of his hair, which is something I'm sure we'll talk about down the road once I decide to cross that bridge, if I do. But yeah, he actually kind of lucked out and ended up with like a really cool look for his locks. But I mean, the guy had to go through hell to kind of get there, which is a really cool story. But his locks are fire. Another person whose locks, I actually saw him the other day in an interview. Omarion has some dope locks, good length, healthy, just very like vibrant looking locks. And obviously a few honorary mentions from back in the day. I'd have to say Bob Marley, and I'd have to say Lauryn Hill. Like, Bob Marley probably has the best freeform locks I've ever seen. Probably the best freeform locks I've ever seen. Some would say it's semi-freeform, but I think Bob Marley has some fire locks. And Lauryn Hill, like, bro, look at these locks, dude. What? Alright, And one more person, probably my sister. My sister has some dope locks, dope length, just healthy. Anytime you go to her house, she got her hair up in a bonnet. Like, she doesn't play around. Like, she takes care of her hair. And it looks real cool. It looks really nice. I actually like them a lot. Her length is awesome. Like, yeah, it's really nice. So yeah, those are a couple of the lockers that I admire. Some of the lockers who I think have really good hair. And there's nothing wrong with seeing another set of locks that you admire and maybe even emulating some things that you see. I think that's, you know, I think that's a part of all of our journeys. Like, you know, art imitates life. And I think in a lot of ways, our hair kind of is the art of ourselves. You know, it kind of represents you and how you want your locks to look and how you want to be perceived or how you feel, or it's just a form of expression. And I think it's okay to be inspired by other people's art. Does that make sense? Yeah? All right. Yeah, that's about it. That's all I have for you guys today. I just wanted to kind of touch base with you guys, answer a few of your frequently asked questions. If y'all have any frequently asked questions that you want to throw my way, or if you have any questions you want to throw my way, please leave it in the comments down below or on any of my other videos. I pull all these questions from my videos, obviously from people I see in my real life. So yeah, for the next frequently asked questions, which will probably be in, I don't know, 6 months or something like that, 7 months, or just whenever I get enough questions that are like, yeah, this is worth a video, I'll make it happen. Definitely subscribe, like, and share the video. I'd appreciate that. Maybe if you think there's somebody that will benefit from hearing my answers to these questions, definitely share that video with them. And otherwise, y'all, that's all I got for you today. All right? Make sure you have a good day. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your locks. Take care of your loved ones. Kojo Locs. Signing out. Peace and love, y'all.